Okay everybody, so welcome back. You joined me in the air as we're just flying to the east of Manchester Airport, which you can see down there. We're making very good progress. It's not a long flight, and believe it or not, we're descending in 8 minutes. That's when top of descent is. So to prepare for top of descent, there are a few things we need to do. So we want to go to the FMC descent page. So we want to go to VNAV page here, and then to page 3 out of 3 descent, and then we go to forecast, transition altitude at Prestwick 060. We can put wind speeds in if we'd like. We can import them from Active Sky, for example. I'm not going to do that today, so we'll go back to legs and we'll bring up the standard arrival chart for Prestwick Airport. So the standard arrival chart for Prestwick shows that we want to go from Ribble to Niska to Aslib, which is where the restrictions start. We need to be exactly flight level 260 at Aslib, then flight level 200 at Inipi, and then flight level 70 at Toxta. So our profile looks good, and the maximum is 210 knots at Toxta, which again is here. So now on the instrument approach chart for Prestwick, we would like to find the altitude that we need to descend towards, which is 2,000 feet. So on the chart, below the actual map, there is a descent profile with a glide path, and the point where there is that almost star sort of shape is where the altitude we want to intercept the ILS and glide slope at. So we want to be on the localizer, so aligned with the runway, and also ready to intercept the glide slope, which will carry us down towards the runway both laterally and vertically. I will explain that closer to the time. We want to set 2,000 feet in our altitude selector here, and then once we get to top of descent, we will be descending automatically to 2,000 feet. I want to select a VREF speed in its ref page. So we're going to be landing with flaps 25, so we just press this right soft key here in line with 25 degrees and 144 knots, and insert in flap/speed here. And so we've got our landing flap setting and our final approach speed, which is our VREF speed, and we can add 5 knots if the winds are extreme enough to do so. For example, if we've got a crosswind or a very variable strong gusts, or strong variable gusts, for example. So we've set our VREF speed, our final approach speed, and we know what our landing flap setting will be. So we want to set minimums. So minimums is it's basically the lowest we can get, the absolute minimum altitude that we can decide whether we are landing or not. So for example, if there was fog and we were not visual with the airport, so we could not see, if we cannot see the runway's approach lighting system, so that's just a set of lights before the runway, can't see any sort of runway lights, so i.e. are not visual with the runway at the minimums, we must go around or divert to another airport. Visibility appears to be fine at Prestwick though, so that's fine. The visibility is 9999, just we can see for 9,999 meters plus, so good visibility there. And that is us now reached top of descent, so you can see our vertical speed is dropping, and our vertical speed will start to reduce as well. So you can hear the throttles can hear our thrust reduce. You can see the vertical speed start to pitch us down, and the speed was reducing and is now increasing. It should reduce again nicely, and this is our profile, our vertical profile, and this magenta diamond, we would like that to be aligned with the line in the middle to show that we are following our VNAV descent profile. So the minimums, as we can see in the boxes, 4 boxes in the bottom left corner of the chart for Prestwick Airport, we are a category Delta aircraft, and so we're doing a category 1 approach since the visibility is good. So our obstacle clearance altitude is just our minimums, so the number in bold in the box for category Delta aircraft category 1 approach is 215 feet, and that is above mean sea level, and then in the brackets, corresponding to the brackets on the key here, is OCH, so that's obstacle clearance height, which is the altitude above ground level for our minimums. So we're already going off barometric readings, so that we are interested in 215 feet for our minimums. And we scroll to 215 by right clicking this dial here and left clicking a few times to get down to 215, and we want to do the same on the other side here. Just drag and pull to increase minimums quickly, and we want to go down to 215 feet. That's the minimum set. So now we want to set the auto brake. So I'm going to go with auto brake 3 for our heavy aircraft. And Prestwick has a long runway, it can cater for 747s. But auto brake 3 should do the trick. We've got to take a lot of factors into account, the weight of the aircraft, the length of the runway, etc. So now we can perform the descent checklists. So the pressurization is checked, the auto brake is set, the VREF and minimums are set, and the approach briefing we've completed. So as you can see, we're a little bit faster than we want to be, so if that's the case, and if we are still following the vertical profile, but if you want to reduce your speed, and sometimes if you want to if you want to correct your vertical profile, then you bring the speed brake out. So we'll just pull it out here. You usually want to bring it to the flight detent. See that the spoilers are extended just to slow the aircraft down a bit in flight. So we're fast approaching Enipi. The aircraft just warning us about the speed brakes being extended, which we know about, and we will put them back down when we reach 260 knots indicated airspeed here. It's important to note that indicated airspeed is different from, for example, the ground speed here, and since its ground speed here is our speed relative to the ground, our actual speed of the ground. We also have a true airspeed, which is not displayed here at this moment in time. Again, our actual speed relative to the air, and this is the indicated airspeed is calculated. I don't know the exact science behind it, but it's to do with the difference between pressures. So you can see the ILS frequency, which is 110.30, is set already automatically here, courtesy of the FMC. It's not like a 737 where you need to, where there's nav radios here and you need to dial in the frequencies of the ILS or VOR if you're using a VOR approach, for example, or even an NDB. We're using neither of these, we're using ILS, but you'd need to dial in a frequency there and then set a course. It's just the runway heading on dials that would be on the left hand side of the MCP and the right hand side as well. So we can now retract our speed brake. So our spoilers are now down. We're speeding up again, so it might be a good idea to just extend them a little bit, but not as much, because we don't want to slow down beyond what we need. Just extend the speed brake a little bit. Stabilize our speed a bit, bring it down even. Bring it back to flight. As you can see, we're just about coming into Scotland here now. Scottish airspace. There's not a whole lot to do here apart from monitoring altitude and speed, our vertical profile here. Speed should be okay. We are following our profile. So I will be back with you guys when we're nearly ready to pass 10,000 feet, which is when the next steps need to be done. Okay, so welcome back. I just wanted to show everyone, or rather go through the procedure I'm about to be taking. So we're about to arrive at 10,000 feet, and obviously we need to be at 250 knots or less below that in UK airspace. So VNAV's doing its trick, which monitoring our speed and our vertical motion. So we are gradually coming down to the flaps up speed. So we will set flaps 1 once we pass this speed at 220 knots. So you can see our approach is fast approaching. We are nearly at Turnberry, but there's still a long way to go. I can probably zoom in the map a bit now. So we need to be at 7,000 feet at Toxta, which looks achievable. We are still following our profile. So we're going to just basically follow the rest of our approach, extending our flaps when we get to various bugs, as we did on takeoff, and then we will intercept the ILS. So when we intercept the dotted line here, which is the localizer, which is basically the runway heading part, the lateral part of our ILS, our instrument landing system arrival, we will descend towards 2,000 feet as well, where we will intercept the glide slope, which is the vertical component of the ILS, which we will press this APP button there, which will basically, it's the approach mode. So on our final approach, the aircraft will arm the glide slope and the localizer to descend and stay on course towards the runway until we're ready to take over manually to land the aircraft. So we are now at the flap up speed, but we've not gone really past it just yet. We're staying at that speed, so once we go down further, I shall go down to flaps 1. So back to legs page. We need to be at 210 knots for Toxta, so we should be going down soon. So we've gone through 10,000 feet, so just the opposite really of what we did when we went through 10,000 feet on the way up. Landing lights come on and the seatbelt signs come on. So we're actually just going to set flaps 1 now, and our speed will gradually drop. We're not quite ready to go towards our flap 1 speed just yet. We do have the option, of course, to use the speed function or flight level change if we wish to change our altitude and our speed simultaneously. We can disarm the speed brakes. So we can use flight level change or speed to change the speed ourselves. We don't need to change our altitude at all because VNav's doing that for us, so there is a little bit of turbulence though. You can see the lovely wing flex there. So we can enable flight level change, which allows us to maintain a specific speed during our descent. So we'll stick to 200 knots, which is our flap 1 speed. It's very choppy here though. With almost headwind, but kind of wind from the northwest coming at us at 19 knots. So we're almost ready to pass 6,000 feet. Again, so the local pressure is 1015 HPA, so we can actually preset that before we change back from standard pressure. So we are just about to go below 6,000 feet now, so from standard to local QNH here. Wasn't a massive difference in that indicated altitude, quite honestly. We are quite a bit below our vertical profile, but the aircraft will take care of that. However, we do need to be at 4,000 feet or above at this point here, so we just need to be careful of that at this waypoint here. So I will set the altitude selector to 4,000 feet in case the aircraft dips below that, which it looks like it might be doing. And of course the warning just to show that we're getting closer to our selected altitude. The flight level change just allows us to maintain a specific speed while we are changing flight level, essentially. You can zoom out to get a better view of our approach. Still a decent way to go. Not a whole lot to say at this stage. Just need to keep extending flaps and then the rest will follow when we actually intercept our ILS course. So this dotted line here is rather choppy. We'll swap back to VNav. The speed it wants us to follow isn't too different, it's just 210. Just to make sure we're following the profile okay. So when we actually do end up passing the flap 1 bug, we can set flaps 5. It's too cloudy to see the airfield from here. soon as we pass TRN 12 waypoint, we want to descend to 2,000 feet, at which we will hopefully intercept the ILS. Prestwick is just off the west coast of Scotland, so we are over water currently. We'll zoom in now. Still about 8 nautical miles to go to our next waypoint. We're slowly catching up to the vertical profile. It's 1 degree Celsius on the ground. Okay, so we've now reached the TRN 12 waypoint, so we can now go down to 2,000 feet. And just click the altitude selector dial so the VNAV knows we want to go down to that. We're just catching up for our vertical profile again, and we should be descending imminently. There's the airfield there, I believe. Wonderful views. So as soon as we intercept this localizer here, we want to arm the approach mode. That'll arm the localizer and glide slope. You'll see that localizer in the lateral column of FMA here, and in the vertical column you'll see G/S, which is glide slope, which is just both the vertical and lateral components of the ILS, which will take us to where we need to be. So as you can see, there is a magenta diamond now popped up here, which is the glide slope. So this is, we want this diamond to eventually be in the middle here when we intercept the ILS, and then the instruments will follow this magenta diamond's descent path, and that will take us nicely to the runway. So we will start slowing down once we've intercepted the ILS.
Radio altimeter.
So we're going to intercept the glide slope just as we intercept the course, which is always nice. So we are just turning onto the ILS now, so I will arm the approach mode. So lock and G/S are now armed and will come into active section when we have actually intercepted both. So we've intercepted the localizer and we're about to intercept the glide slope here. So the glide slope's well alive and we're just about to intercept it, so that means we can put the landing gear down now. And now we can set the speed down. We can actually go down to flaps 5 and we can now just set the speed down to relevant next bug of our flaps. So once we've passed flaps 5 we want to set flaps 15. We also want to arm the speed brake, so we'll left click here. Aircraft's not doing an auto land, which is fine. So now at flaps 15 so now flaps 10, then speed down to the flap 10 bug, and then we want to set our landing flaps, which is flap 25, and set the speed bug down to VREF speed, which is 144. Now I will take control of the aircraft by disengaging the autopilot for the last part. Alright, so I'm about to conduct the landing procedure, so I will just briefly talk you through it before I actually execute it. So what we want to do basically is we want to, now I have manual control of the aircraft, we want to fly it down following the glide slope and the localizer to stay in line with the runway, and as well as on our descent path as well. So we want to continue on that course, and normally you get these lights called PAPIs, which are lights that basically give you, they're a visual indicator of your glide slope rather than an instrumental one. However, they don't seem to be appearing properly on this particular scenery, but we do have our instrumental glide slope anyway. But they're basically, if there's 2 white lights and 2 red lights, that means you're on your glide slope profile. If there's more red than white, that means you're too low, and if there's more white than red, that means you're too high. But anyway, we've got our magenta diamond, as I mentioned before, to indicate our glide slope. So I'm going to continue down following the paths, and on approach, when the aircraft approaches, it automatically pitches the nose up a little bit while also descending to get ready for angling your landing. So you keep going, and then at about 30 feet you do what is called a flare. You put the throttle to idle and you pull up just to allow the aircraft to descend gently and land in the touchdown zone, which is the area I mention later, which is where it's basically like 3 boxes arranged into a sort of triangle on each side, the left and right hand side of the main lines in the middle of the runway, and that's the touchdown zone. And the last thing I wanted to indicate to you is when at 2,500 feet we heard a voice say radio altimeter, which just means that the radio altimeter is now active, and so the altitude you see just above really the artificial horizon on the primary flight display, it's the radio altitude, it's the altitude above ground level that we're at, and that's what the altitude countdown 50, 40, 30 is all about. Okay, back into the video. This flight, so landing checklist, engine start switch can be set to continuous. Speed brakes armed, landing gears down, flaps are at 25. So maintaining lateral and vertical
50 above.
Course.
Decide.
We are landing at minimums.
Flight slope. 50. 30. 20.
No flare. And touchdown just before the touchdown zone. Nice. So, just gentle, and thrust reversers can now be armed. And at about 70 knots we can disengage thrust reversers and manual braking can commence. Welcome everybody to Prestwick Airport. So we'll just take the next exit. Exiting the runway at this exit point. Now taxi to our parking. We just want to maintain ground speed of around 15 knots, as we can see here. So, to bring up the aerodrome chart, or rather the parking docking chart of Prestwick Airport, I've just landed on runway 12, so I've exited at Quebec, and I'm taxiing down Romeo, and I want to park on the main apron, and we're going to park at stand 7. So, we go to GSX and only wants us to go to north parking, but for the sake of this tutorial it's not really important where we park, it's just important that the procedures are done correctly. So I will continue towards the main apron. Stop the time. You can bring the flaps up. You can get the auto brake off. We can disarm the spoiler. Get the radar, weather radar off. get our landing lights off, our runway turn-offs on, our strobe lights off as we're off an active runway now. Start the APU. Preparation for engine shutdown. And the transponder can be set back to altitude reporting only. And the engine start switch can come off again. Glasgow Prestwick Freight Centre. We're the only aircraft at this airport, I believe. It says stand 7, which I believe is here. Taxi to the parking spot. So we can get our parking brake on, we can get the APU generators on, and we can shut down the engines by just cutting off the fuel supply. There we are, spooling down. So we can now get the seatbelt signs off. The anti-collision light can come off just as the engines are starting to slow down. We can get fuel pumps off except the main pumps for tank 2, which obviously feeds the APU. The anti-ice can come off. The engine hydraulic switches will remain on, however the electrical ones will come off. Recirc fans are upper and lower are both on, which is what we'd like. Normal packs, isolation valve as needed. Bleed air switches, you can turn on the APU bleed. The exterior lights, we can get the runway turn-off lights off. We should have probably done that earlier, just as we were coming into the stand, so as not to blind the marshaller if there was one. All the lights are as needed though. We get the flight directors off. PCAS, transponder can go to standby. And now the ground equipment can be connected up by going to the menu, so set the chocks back and hence end the block time 1 hour 31 minutes. And we can request ground power now. So the GPU, ground power unit, is now available. So we're on external power now, so APU can come off. See the engine's windmilling now. So all that remains is a shutdown checklist and a secure checklist if this were the last flight of the day, which I will show you. So the fuel pumps are off, well they can all come off now, we've not got an APU. The hydraulic panel is set, flaps are up, parking brake is set, the engine start levers are cut off and the weather radar is off. And finally we can secure the aircraft by turning off IRSs. The emergency exit lights can go back to the off position. The window heats can come off and the packs can come off. And this is what we'd do if this was the final flight of the day. Otherwise we would not do the secure procedure and we would instead turn around the aircraft and start the flight again. So the secure checklist is that the IRSs are off, the emergency exit lights are off, the window heat is off and the packs are off. And I'll just get rid of all the EFIS functions now that I had on before. Reset minimums. I believe need to go down to 0 in order to get rid of them. Come down nicely. And if we wanted to shut the aircraft off, then we would turn off the external power switches, lift up the battery master flap, turn the battery switch off, and our navigation lights would come off too. So there you have it. That is as complete as I can make it. PMDG 747 tutorial series from cold and dark at one airport to cold and dark at another. So I hope you guys enjoyed and learned at least something from myself. I enjoyed making this series a lot. This is a great aircraft and I hope I provided a good tutorial for you guys. Obviously I didn't go into emergency procedures or ACARs or even flight planning for that matter, but if you guys are interested I can make separate videos on these topics. But for now I hope you guys enjoyed, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.